Hello and welcome, Battlegroup fans. Solo Guy here, and today we're going to be doing a game of Battlegroup, and we're going to go into the Russian front, July 1941. We're going to be using the Battlegroup Barbarossa sourcebook. And over here, I've already deployed on the table, but just to give you guys an idea, I have a German Panzer battle group from the 4th Panzer Division. And over here, I have the elements of a Russian mechanized group. Don't know which particular mechanized group. I've tried to do some research. I had no luck. If you have any insights, let me know. And for the setup here, we were allowed to set up only X number of units. So the Russians have set up, yes, that is a KV-1E. And as we go over here, the Germans are only allowed 2 Panzers on the battlefield for initial deployment. And you may notice there's 1, 2. That was a mandatory objective there at the road junction. And the 4th one here. Now, the way the battle group game works, your army, when you buy units for your battle group, it contains a certain number of battle rating points. Think of it like a morale, an army morale. So, army morale degrades as you play the game. Even if you do everything right, your army morale can drop to 0. The moment it drops to 0, doesn't matter if you got the other guy on the ropes, you're toast. That's how it works. Which is really cool. Now, at this point, the Germans have a big whopping, let's see, how many morale points? Battle ratings. So the Germans have 42 battle rating points. The Russian, 38 battle rating points. Well, the Russians have 42. Now the thing is, there is the lone sniper scout that the Russians had. The Germans did not have such an advantage. And when you're out scouted, you draw a piece, and the Germans automatically took 2 points of a loss. But understand, on the first German turn, when these guys take those objectives, it's going to force the Russians to lose, to force them to draw chits, and same thing here. Now, the Russians also are hampered by command chaos, so they don't have like the officer's role like the Germans do. So, anyways, that is it for now. Let the games begin. We're at the end of German turn 1, with only 2 units on the board, being those Panzer IIIs there. They were given advance orders, and they did seize both objectives for turn 1, causing the Russians to lose 3 points on from their battle rating, and the Russians really couldn't do anything, but they did draw something called Beyond the Call of Duty, and the Russian player put it on the KV and rolled for it, and nothing. And that's it for turn 1 Germans. End of Russian turn 1. You know, rolling snake eyes on a 2d6 and then getting 1 extra order on the command chaos roll, since you can't take into account officers, I can only move 3 Russian tanks. So the KV-1 moves down the road. Took a shot, tried to spot the Panzer over there, and nothing. But in the process, 2 the BTs went and nabbed the other objective, forcing the Germans to accept things. And it turns out, yeah, exactly, a mine strike. So next turn, more German troops will come on, but there were only 2 tanks to start with, and now 1 is out of the game already, without a shot being fired. Well, that's it for now. Okay, here we are on German turn 2, and I know I got the detritus of battle on the other hand. One of the tanks got lost because of the Russians pulling a mine thing last turn. The Russians moved their tanks here originally. So German infantry has moved up in support of the glorious Panzers. We got a 37mm gun that has also moved up. Interestingly enough, in the vagaries of war, confusion was drawn, and, well, the KV, the Big Kahuna, is now pinned. And when you're pinned, you can't take orders, can't do orders, you're just a sitting duck. That's it, until you're rallied. But when you rally, you lose battle rating points in the game. All right, that's it for now. We're going to look at Russian turn 2. We are at the end of Russian turn 2. Russians brought on a reinforcement. The AT gun over there moved up. The 3 BTs moved up to try to shoot at him. Failed. This BT shot also failed. And our last guy, the Russian sniper, has decided to wait. And that's it. So we just finished off German turn 3. They only rolled 4 command points with their officers. They got 7 orders to give out. Command points, or orders, are basically telling you how many units you are allowed to have them perform actions. Yeah, for the Germans it wasn't great, but they brought in a bunch of reinforcements. And if you notice there, we have got a 105mm gun right over here. We also have brought in 2 more Panzers and 2 more Panzers. So everybody is on the board. Every Panzer was firing, and the dice were smoking, because here you go. 2 BTs go down. I'm sorry, did I say 2? No, there was a 3rd one as well. So, what does this do for the morale, the battle rating? Stay tuned. Hey, I do need to give an introduction. Every game of Battlegroup, when you purchase units or you use a list, you have what's called a battle rating. Think of it as army morale. The higher the morale, the better it is. However, every time you lose a unit, you pick a chit from the pile, so the morale goes down. Or you might have some strange events of war that happen. Now, at the beginning of this, the Russians have 42 for a battle rating. The Germans have 38. That is going to change, as you will see, as we progress through the game. Okay, so we're at the end of German turn 3. The battle rating has definitely changed from the very beginning of the game. Normally in a game, both players keep their battle ratings silent. The other player doesn't know about it until it goes down to 0, or literally all objectives have been held, depending on the scenario. In this case, going down to 0 is good for the victor, bad for the loser. So you can see the Germans start out with 38, and they lost 3 points, essentially because the Russians took objectives at the beginning of the game. That lost them the 3 points. Now, we look at the Russians, they started out at 42, but then they started to lose points because the Germans would grab objectives. But you see, they also, which I forgot to mention, they pinned the KV. The KV got pinned. They had to unpin it, which drew a chit. That took points out. And then they lost 3 BT-7s, and that took a serious hit to the morale. So now the Russians are at 27, the Germans are at 35. This is going to be ugly, folks. Stay tuned. Okay, here we are at the end of Russian turn 3. The Russians were able to bring on 3 more units. They ended up literally getting 10 orders. They rolled well, given the command chaos that they have. So the 45 has moved a little bit further. I forgot to mark him. I decided to try an experiment using little pillow filler material, polyester of some sort, to put behind the vehicles to indicate that they've moved. And I've also put them in the front to indicate that they fired. That way it's easier for me to remember who moved, who fired, all that other wonderful stuff. As you can see, the KV-1 has boldly moved forward. They have not fired, however, so that is a mistake. Well, actually, no, they did fire. They failed. The other BTs, they fired, failed, and we got one hit on the German Mark III from one of the BT-7s. Yeah, nothing happened. All right, we are going to be moving on to the next German turn. Okay, here we are at the end of German turn 4. All the German troops have now deployed on the battlefield. You can see movement with a couple of the tanks trying to move a little bit closer. We got infantry moving onto the field. Here, there, to secure the objective. We got the formation commander. Okay, and an ATR guy. We also have over there a short 75mm gun, and then we had 3 Panzers fire, resulting in ultimately 1 more BT down. So what does that mean for the Russian player? Has that affected the morale? Yeah, it has. It's now 35-24. This is not looking good for the Russians. They need some miracles right now. On to Russian turn 4. So here we are at the end of Russian turn 4. The Russians ruled lots of orders, but only 2 more units came on, so I brought more T-26 tanks out on there. You kind of notice I've put what looks like smoke behind the units. Those to indicate that they've moved. And I did a little experiment where I was painting these guys brownish so they can tell it's the ground kicking up. And then, of course, the smoke in the front tells me that the unit fired in that turn, because that's kind of important in the game when you try to go and observe and things like that for observation purposes. But while the KV didn't do anything, the BT went and took out this bad boy. So that'll be the end of Russian turn 4. We're going to do a quick morale battle rating update. So, this is the battle rating standings of the 2 sides at the end of Russian turn 4. And the Germans lost another 3 points. Now, normally, the other opponent shouldn't be seeing this, but hey, I'm solo guy. I get to know these things, but it also gives you, battle groupies, a chance to see where are these units standing. Well, the game is not quite over yet, as you guys can tell, but there's more Russian tanks on the field, but with the Command Chaos dice, that's going to make things a bit challenging. Stay tuned. So here we are at the end of German turn 5. You can see that the Panzer IIIs have moved up a lot closer. They are trying to actively engage the enemy over here. You notice that there are a number of Russian T-26s moving up. The fights are still on, but there was also the 105mm gun over here who did a nasty little thing called suppression, and he pinned the KV-1. Ouch. Now the only thing is, unlike Flames of War, in Battlegroup, if a unit gets pinned, they can't do orders, they can do nothing except die when they get shot at. So the only way to remove it is you take a battle rating chit and take your chances. Okay, now over here we can see that we've had some engagement. Here we've had some movement, had the Panzer III move up, And we also had German infantry move up to secure this objective so that there'd be no arguments. So, wow, what's going to happen in the next turn? Because the Russians need more reinforcements. Okay, so we're at the end of Russian turn 5. You may notice there are some more tanks coming down the roadway here, and they're starting to split off here, pushing forward. These guys tried to fire. Okay, these guys are continuing to move, and for the Germans, well, nothing happened to them. But you may have noticed I changed the color of the clouds a little bit, so let me explain it to you. The brownish clouds are to indicate that they have moved, the grayish clouds to indicate that they've shoot. Now, for Battleground, that's kind of important because it's kind of a determination about how easy or how difficult it is for spotting. Okay, we're going to be at German turn 6. Okay, German turn 6, and it's a short report. Nothing happened. Germans fired. Either they couldn't hit, or they hit, they didn't penetrate, or they couldn't spot anything. That's it. Russian turn 6 coming up. End of Russian turn 6. What a turn it's been. The Russians were able to bring in a couple of more reinforcements, so we've got squad here, couple of more T-26s. And that's the good news. The other good news is there has been some success as the Russians have fired and pinned one Panzer and taken out 2 others. But the situation now for the Russians is, with the Chaos Command and the serious lack of order dice, they have more assets on the field than they know what to do with. So literally, I've got units sitting around doing nothing. Well, we'll see what happens with German turn 7. The German morale did go down. The battle rating did go down by a few more points. So, we're going to hit German turn 7. End of German turn 7. Boy, there has been a lot of payback by the Germans, because the Panzers fired, the AT gun fired, the artillery piece fired, even, well, this Panzer was pinned, but even this Panzer fired, and resulting in 1, 2, 3 Russian tanks going down. This is not good for the Russians, folks, because when we look up the tally here for our morale here, the Germans are still, for their battle rating, at 26. The Russians have gone down to 15. Ooh, not good. Here's the question. Do the Russians risk unpinning the KV, take the hit in morale, the battle rating, and keep fighting? Or there's still quite a few Russian assets available out there, including an AT gun. We've got infantry, which pretty much you want them for the objective. But, ooh, this is getting to be brutal. All right, coming back at you with Russian turn 7. Being at the end of Russian turn 7, rolled a lot of orders, moved a lot of tanks, as you can see, threatening more Germans. The Germans did, unpin this tank here because they need it. However, there was the lucky shot that one Panzer III got taken out by the T-26, who moved into cover behind the grain field. Not to mention, the Russians finally bit the bullet, rallied the KV back out of being pinned or suppressed, however you want to like it. But wow, they took a hit. And right now, this is the standing. Germans have 24 battle rating, the Russians have 12. It is still anybody's game. Don't make that mistake. It's not over yet. Okay, but we are now heading into German turn 8. Stay tuned, folks. End of German turn 8. Can you believe it? Well, the German commander finally decided to stop drinking the schnapps and show up on the battlefield. That's the 38 there. Came in, fired, was ineffective. Everybody else fired. All the other tanks, anything that had a tube, fired. Losing another Russian tank. These guys here, I don't know. Pressure, I'm not sure. But yeah, they didn't do anything to the Russian tanks. However, that one Russian tank took the casualty. Here's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of battle points. The Germans are at 24. The Russians are now down to 9. This, ooh. But the KV monster is still up. We're not talking mid-war monsters here, folks. We're talking, this is early war, baby. Let's see what happens in the next Russian turn. End of Russian turn 8, and you may notice that Panzer Commander apparently is not popular. And yeah, the men aren't exactly mourning because they drew a 0 when it came down to how does it affect the German battle rating. Meanwhile, the Germans, they've been firing but inconclusive. The Russians have moved in more tanks, but nothing's happening. However, I forgot to mention that when the Germans lost their Panzer last turn, that they pulled an aircraft counter, so that might be playing an important role in the next turn. Don't know, gotta roll for it. It's still, the Russians are on the ropes, but the Germans are bleeding out. Alright, stay tuned, Battlegroup fans. The end of Russian turn 9. Can you believe it? It's gone on this long. Well, to quote William Dafoe from Boondock Saints, there was a firefight. And I'm sorry, it's not Russian turn 9. It's German turn 9 as the Germans unleashed what everything had. This guy ended up taking out the T-26 on the right. This guy here, yes, the AT gun hero of the day, took out him and him as well in incredible shots. Everybody else, the ATR guy decided to move to try to fire at this tank. Missed. 105 fired to no effect. But I gotta tell you, does this have an impact on Russian battle ratings? Let's take a quick look here. And, ooh, the Germans are at 24. The Russians are down. They went from 9 down to 3. Ooh. And you might be saying, why aren't you giving this up? Why don't you just call it the Russians pull back and that's it? Some of us don't want to face the boss. And if you're a Russian player, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Zarodinu to Russian turn 9. And here we are at the end of Russian turn 9. What a slugfest this has been with some incredible surprises. Over here, we have a Russian sniper who is going after the ATR team. Yep, the ATR team. They succeeded. The ATR man died. The other ATR guy took the ATR, literally past, mind you, literally past the, oh gosh, the Beyond the Call of Duty, fired, and blew up this T-26 in the process. Meanwhile, KV fired, no effect. The T-26 is fired, and, oh, ouch, no more 105mm gun. So this fight is still a slugfest, but I have to point out, The battle ratings have changed once again. So the Germans are at 20, the Russians are at 1. They're hanging on. Do they continue the next fight? Yes, because I don't want to answer to the boss. Okay, we're at the end of German turn 10. Things are definitely winding down, and this Panzer moved, fired, did nothing. The AT gun does not have a line of sight to any Russian tanks for the moment, so it's on ambush fire. Infantry gun over there decided to take a shot at one of those two firing Soviet tanks with no luck. And that's it for German turn 10. Looking at the end of Russian turn 10, they're hanging on by 1 battle rating point. The Germans lost a point. How come? Well, what have the Russians been up to? They're able to move everybody, which they did. The KV moved up, fired on the Panzer III here, and didn't do anything to it. Missed it. Meanwhile, we had T-26s that shot, and so much for that infantry gun, which caused the Germans to lose a single point. Meanwhile, our AT gun that was on ambush fire tried to shoot at the T-26 over there, the one that's got the brown cotton ball after it, and boldly missed. Meanwhile, Russian infantry are moving up. They are moving forward. The sniper is also moved forward. So, that's it. Let's see what turn 11 is going to bring for the Germans. So we are at the end of German turn 11. I wish I could say lots of things happened, but it did not. The game is not over yet. The Panzer III took a risk to shoot at the T-26 over there and boldly missed. AT gun tried to shoot at the same T-26 over there. Missed. Meanwhile, the Lancers opened up and took out the sniper. Yeah. Lots of firepower at those MG-34s, right? Lots of it. This isn't MG-42 country, folks. It's not time for that yet. All right. We'll see what happens with the Russians. End of Russian turn 11. Rolling 8 orders. The T-26 is moved forward. The AT gun moved forward. Infantry moved forward. The other squad took cover in the building, went and suppressed these guys here, pinning them, so they can't do anything unless the Germans go and give that rally order, which does subtract from the battle rating. The big thing, though, was that the KV fired and missed. Then they had another chance to fire, but you always have to spot in Battlegroup. And couldn't even spot them. Somehow, in the chaos, in the midst of the whole thing, that was it. So, the Germans are still intact with their last Panzer. I'm thinking, as a German tank commander, there's that T-26 over there. That's a possibility. Because I know I can't get him. I can't get the KV. Gotta think. Okay, looking at German and Russian turn 12. I can't believe how far this game has gotten. Nothing much really happened. The notable exception is one of the T-26s fired and killed one of the crew members of the AT gun. The KV-1 has moved, fired, and keeps missing. Absolutely incredible for this game. Both sides have had 3 orders from the last turn. So that kind of affects a few things here and there. All right, well, it's going to be German turn 13. German turn 13. This is it, folks. It's over. It's over. With the Russian KV missing the last turn, making this Panzer available, the Germans ended up getting 3 orders. So the AT gun fired and hit, causing the pin of this T-26. This Panzer, however, is the one who put the finishing touch, taking out that T-26 next to the pinned one, and it caused the Russian morale, the battle rating, to drop by 2 more points, bringing them down, ladies and gentlemen, to the grand total of -1. Well, that's it, folks. This was a hard-fought battle. As far as for the Russians, maybe if they had played differently, maybe if they had taken the battle point hitting sooner, got the KV back online, and let her rip. But still, all the Germans would need to do is suppress it. And again, that was a hard-fought battle. And believe me, the high command isn't happy on either side. Well, that's it, folks, as we're taking one last look on our battlefield. Here, we got a lot of flaming wrecks here. And with that, all right, battle groupies, we're calling it a day. Hope you enjoyed this. Solo Guy out.